everybody. I'm Dr. Melanie Barham. I'm the founder of the DVM project, and tonight I'm really excited to be joined by Dr. Mike Mossop, who is going to be talking to us all about his new venture with Treatwell. It's not so new, but an established venture, and his career story, and we're also going to open it up for people to ask questions too. So feel free, I'm going to be monitoring the Facebook chat. You can feel free to direct message me if you don't want your question to be public, or you can also, if you're here in Zoom with us, then you can also put it into the chat. So feel free to do that. We're very happy to have you here. Welcome, Mike.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Melanie. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start with a kind of an open-ended question. If you can tell us a bit about yourself and your career path and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in Ottawa, went to OVC, University of Guelph, for vet school. And after I got out of school, I kind of went into practice just like a lot of my classmates. I worked in an emergency clinic for a few years and then on to general practice. But after 8 or 9 years, I really just started to get burnt out. Like I was frustrated a little bit in my ability to affect change at the clinic I was at, but also there's a lot of things we do as vets, and I feel there's got to be better ways, like especially in terms of customer service and some of the fear-free medicine, that kind of thing. I mean, obviously people are making their best effort to do it, but I think sometimes the situation isn't set up to really foster those types of things. So I did a little soul searching, and I thought about leaving the industry. I thought about doing a bunch of different things, but ended up making some really interesting connections, talking with some people doing cool things kind of on the periphery of vet medicine. Like they were veterinarians, but kind of on the outside in the tech industry and other things. And one individual in particular got me turned on to learning about self-management and different ways to manage people. And that was kind of the push I needed to think about starting a business for myself. So, and that's kind of led to Treatwell Pet Care over the last few years.
Nice. So tell us a bit about Treatwell and what's different about it. And I know I was quite excited to learn a little bit more about it and how you set things up, because it seems like it's, although you hear the words, oh, mobile clinic, oh, I know all about that. It sounds like this is quite different.
Yeah, and I like to think so. It's interesting. A lot of clients don't know that mobile practices exist, right? It's brand new, and they're flabbergasted and very happy to find out about it. But in all honesty, I mean, it's been around. Mobile practice has been around longer than stationary practice, and we're just trying to do the same thing, but with a very modern twist. So the way I like to put it, it's kind of a blend of in-home care and telemedicine, and the kind of the mission, like what we want to achieve is basically, if we can make something easier for the pet parent, that is what we're going to do. And virtually every decision in the company kind of rotates around that. So I mean, one of the big ones is getting your pet to the clinic is often a pain in the ass. And whether it's an anxious pet, whether it's timing, convenience, whether it's lack of transportation, any number of things. Us showing up at your house, and especially being where the pet is most comfortable, and honestly where people are most comfortable too. Like vet clinics are stressful places for I think both the clients and the employees there. So it's just much more relaxed. I like to say it's a little bit more civilized, but we really leverage the telemedicine component in between to make it work as well.
Yeah, and tell me a bit more about the values and the mission of the company. And I love the name Treatwell, but tell me what it means to you. I think that was kind of a neat story from what I heard from you before.
Yeah, I mean, so the name, it's tough to come up with a good name. There's a lot of names that are taken, but I mean, I just, the treat, I kind of liked it. There's a good, the two meanings, like treat as in a treatment, taking care of somebody medically, but also, the treats we give our dogs and cats are like a treat for yourself in terms of not having to go into the clinic. So kind of multiple layers, but all positive things. And so that's kind of where the name came from. In terms of values, like I said, over and above everything else, it's just coming back to like, how do we make this easier for our clients? And it's part of it is the in-home stuff. Part of it is trying to solve problems remotely with telemedicine interaction. So like people really, really appreciate just us taking 10 minutes to talk to them on the phone. And it's in a lot of practices, or at least in my experience, it's very tough to get through to the veterinarians to ask simple questions like that. But we actually like block time off in our schedule to do those kinds of phone calls and emails, and people really appreciate it. So kind of that customer service thing, fear-free medicine is big, right? Like, especially because all of our interactions, like it's really myself, there's an assistant, like we always travel in teams of two, so usually a technician, and the pet owner, right? So like everything is happening right there. There's no, let's just grab the other assistant to hold these legs and get her done. Like it's all very transparent, I guess, in that sense. And I think the clients feel a little bit more involved, I think, in a lot of ways. And when animals do get anxious and we decide to kind of back off and come up with a plan B, they're very understanding. And, one of the other kind of core values we had, I mentioned transparency just in terms of with the clients, but that also goes for, basically the employees. So I mentioned self-management a little bit, and, I try very, very hard to kind of treat everybody in the company like an adult and let them make their own decisions. And whether that has to do with things like scheduling, salary, bringing in a new process, making some other suggestions, like it's all totally open, and we have a really neat kind of family dynamic. But I think the key to making that work is the transparency. So like, everybody in the company knows how much everybody makes. The financials are always open. We kind of sit down and look at the business numbers for everything. And that's, not just myself and a business partner, but it's me and the technicians and the veterinarians and the reception team too. So.
Right. Oh, that's really interesting. And so I think so tell me a bit more about this concept of self-management for people who might have joined us who don't necessarily know much about that. So I think that's it's very different in vet med anyways.
Yeah, and it's like, so it goes by different names: self-management, responsive organizational design is another one, and it is newer, right? Like it's not really widespread. That being said, there are a lot of companies in a lot of different industries, especially the tech industry, that put these kinds of things to practice. And I guess the best way to explain it is, in a lot of kind of more corporate situations where there's kind of this hierarchy, for people on the ground level to get things done in a very efficient manner is difficult, right? Because things need to go up the chain and get approval and come back down. And I mean, it can take months or simply be impossible, right? So you kind of have this finely tuned machine, but if something breaks or isn't working, it's very difficult to fix. In a self-managed company, it's much more autonomous. So, the people on the front lines basically get to make their own decisions. It's not to say this is like, the wild, wild west. Like, there are boundaries and guidance. And I think the guidance actually helps people make decisions, but it's more akin to like an organism that basically evolves on its own as opposed to a machine. And my hope, at least in my experience with it, like it's way nicer to work in this environment. Like, people are more engaged given the fact that they're able to have, input on real decisions, and given they have the right information to make those decisions.
So bringing ideas would be really welcome in your company.
Yeah, it's more than welcome. It's required.
Okay, I got it. I like that.
I know not everybody is necessarily into that. Like, I do believe, I think these types of systems, like, I think virtually everybody will thrive in them. Not every single person. We all have our own styles of working and things like that, and it might not be for everybody. But the vast majority of people, given the opportunity and given the right environment and the right support, I think are very forthcoming and participatory. I mean, it's not like you're not necessarily getting up on stage and making a speech in front of 200 people. It's not that kind of thing, right? We're a small team of like 5 or 6 people, maybe hopefully growing at 10 or 20, but yeah, it's like a little family in some ways, and we have our issues, but generally it works well.
Gotcha. Okay. I really like that. And so the other part that I wanted to touch on was the part of, when you were telling me about what you were doing, I thought it was really interesting how you had thought about, how to make things easier for the client, but also how to make things easier for the veterinarian and the staff. So I wonder if you can just share a little bit about that from the Treatwell perspective, like removing the friction spots, because I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I mean, that is a big part of it. Like again, when we started this, part of it was kind of from a customer service perspective, but I have to say, like, the bigger part was from giving veterinarians, giving technicians, other people in our industry a good place to work where they're happy and they enjoy going to their job. And
Yeah.
we do have some stressful bits and stuff like that, just like any practice, but we have taken some steps to try and make things easy. So, one big part, not our whole clientele, but like I don't know, 75% of our clients are on a membership plan. So it means a couple of things. I mean, number one, for most of our visits, like there is actually no financial transaction, right? So regular checkups and things like that, we're showing up, we're doing vaccines, we're doing a fecal test, and that's it. And it's really nice to leave and not have to do that. Same thing with a lot of these kind of micro telemedicine appointments, like sending these emails back and forth. Again, we've dedicated the time to do that, and it's kind of part of the day-to-day job. But there's no money changing hands there because it's kind of covered by the membership payments, and so that's a big part of it. Just again, and it was tricky to do this, but like allotting the appropriate amount of time and balancing between how much time each vet is spending on the road versus in the office. That was a little tricky, and honestly, we're still feeling it out a little bit. But that's one of the things where everybody has input, and we make a little tweak. If it works, we stick with it. If it doesn't, we change. Kind of stemming from that, this is not a mistake, but we try and make transactions as easy as possible for people, right? So because most people have a membership with us, they also have a credit card on file, and this is hosted on a secure site with Stripe. But basically, if people want to buy food, or if we run a blood test during a visit, it's very easy to say like, hey, can we put it on your card on file? And 99.9% of the time, that's it. And so we go back to the office, we put it through, and you're done. So setting aside the time and making those financial transactions a little easier are a big part of it. This is kind of going off on another tangent, but we are developing our own medical record software that's going to get layered on top of the stuff that powers our membership right now. And that, I mean, it's still in development. It's a big project. It's not around the corner, but we want to do that in a very user-friendly way. Like I always find with a lot of records, I want this I want to know what food they're on, or when this is due or whatever. And it just, we want to make it very user friendly, I guess, is the bottom line.
I really like that. And I think, were you telling me too that that each of the vets has time in the office to do records and also do telemedicine? Like, I think you mentioned that a little bit, but I thought that was an interesting portion that is actually in your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not an insignificant portion either. I mean, it kind of varies by shift, but like for kind of the early day shifts, I mean, it's roughly 50-50. So like you're out on the road from like 9 to noon, and then you're in the office from kind of 12:30 to 1 something, or sorry, not 12:30 to 1, 12:30 to 4:30, something like that. Evening shift is a little bit more road heavy, but there are a few hours before you leave and a couple hours after to do telemedicine and not just catch up, but to attend to all that stuff, writing prescriptions, those kinds of things. But and again, it's open. I'm sure we'll tweak that more as time goes on, but right now that seems to be working. And I like to think we're adaptable too. So I like doing the morning shift. It works for me and my family life. My associate veterinarian actually prefers the evening, so it kind of works out nicely. But everybody's flexible, and I'm sure we can accommodate other things as well. So.
Yeah, that's really neat. I think one of the things that strikes me about your story and why I thought it would be such a great thing for our audience to hear about was really that you saw a problem in vet medicine you didn't see. You saw an issue that was not being solved, and you wanted to find a place to solve those problems. So you created it, which is really cool. And so I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that journey towards, from seeing the problem and then seeing a problem that you felt, and kind of making it into a solution that you can work in.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, there wasn't like this single moment or anything like that. It was actually, I don't know if it was really a year of thinking and talking to people. And, I'd talk to one person and get a couple ideas, and they'd connect me with somebody else. And slowly the ideas just kind of started to crystallize. And honestly, there was a business in the US that was doing some stuff kind of similar to the way we run. They have since pivoted and are more telemedicine only, but I ended up connecting with kind of their head vet at the time. It's called Fuzzy Pet Health, if anybody's familiar. But I mean, he was really helpful, and actually a lot of the people I talked to kind of on the business side of things, like they were really, really supportive, right? People just genuinely seemed to want to see somebody doing something new and different in our space. And so it was very collaborative, and it was, I don't know, kind of made me feel very heartened, I guess, and gave me the courage to quit. I mean, I was working as a locum, right? So there wasn't a huge risk, although there has been significant risks in starting the business. But it was enough for me to take a leap of faith. And I was lucky enough to find a technician who kind of believed in it as well, and she took the same leap of faith, and it started with the two of us, and we've grown from there. So.
That's fantastic. So if you were to say, what kind of person would thrive at your workplace or at Treatwell, what kind of person would do really well in your job?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just the ability to talk to people, right? Like somebody who likes the part of it. I know some vets, they're there for the animals as opposed to the people, and that's kind of how I started too, to be honest. But I found even in just my regular practice, like it was actually the helping people that really resonated with me. So I think we do need people like that who have the bedside manner and the emotional intelligence, because again, we really want to have great service, and I think those things are important. We don't do as much of the really technical surgeries, although one day we may have our own surgical suite, which is a different story. But for now, it's just more about that interaction, and I think that will play well with the customers, but it's also important for our team internally, right? Like we really are a small group. We thrive on teamwork, and I think it's important. Things are not quite as delegated as they are in some vet clinics. Like I always remember in the previous general practice I was in, like, I'd go into an appointment with somebody, we'd make a bunch of decisions. I'd send them up to the front desk, and I'd go and do another appointment, and I'd finish the appointment. And when I came out, that first person was still up at reception. They were still being billed through and medications counted. And it's just, there really are a lot of steps that happen after the exam room. And so it's a little different in that, especially when we're in somebody's home, like it's two of us. So I'm sometimes taking out the medication or counting the pills or writing the label. And even back at the office, like we do have different roles, but we really try and chip in and help each other, because I think it makes us work as a more efficient team, which serves the clients and the patients better. So.
Cool, thank you. Now, so I'm going to ask you a tough question, actually. So,
Okay.
so some people, when I talk to them about, when we're doing career counseling or something like that, and we talk about, would you want to go into mobile or something like that, lots of people have conceptions about how mobile practice might be. So I wonder if you could kind of respond to some of I don't know if they're myths, maybe you can tell me. So things like, it gets really boring in mobile practice. It's so it's only routine stuff, and it gets boring really quickly. You spend all your time on the road, so it's not profitable. Or it's just like you just end up being a vaccine pusher.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you feel the same way about. I'm sure you don't, but but it would be good to hear, because I feel like those are big myths about this career path.
For sure. And I guess, I mean, I should say I've only ever worked in one mobile practice. Like this is the only mobile work I've done. So it's a little difficult for me to speak to other, kind of more traditional mobile practices. And I do think, I should say there are other mobile vet businesses, including in Ottawa, where I think they are forward thinking. But, when I picture like, and some of the other practitioners around, like, I picture kind of the older school practitioner going into like a house by himself. I don't know how they do it, right? Like I cannot for the life of BC doing what we do without having the team support. Like again, especially having that technician there, and then having the client participating as another role. But like having that technician there is really critical. I mean, partly for handling the patients, but also just when I'm talking, having them be able to write notes or look up information, things like that. Like it makes us 1,000 times more efficient.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's easier there in terms of the boredom piece. Like, I mean, we do, I would say the stuff that we do is fairly similar to most general practices. Again, the surgery, the x-rays are not there right now. We're referring those out. But again, eventually we hope to build our own clinic and basically be able to keep that in-house. But I don't find it boring. I mean, if you're like an adrenaline junkie and you love emergency, then it's probably not the place for you, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just the way it is. But for somebody who thrives in general practice, um, I would almost say like it's I don't want to say the opposite of boring, but like I get a lot of interest out of the business side and the technology side that we're working on, and I welcome any employee who has input on that side. Like I think there's a whole world there that they could participate in if they want something a little different. But just on the medical side, like because we have more time set aside to talk to people, I think we actually do more in-depth workups as a result, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're in an exam room and there's 20 minutes and you're saying, okay, we got to do an ACTH stimulation test and this, that, and the other thing, and an ultrasound, like I think a lot of it kind of goes in and out, and the client sees the bottom line, and maybe you don't get the opportunity to do those tests. But when you have the ability to send back and forth an email conversation over a week or two, maybe have a couple of phone calls and in-person visit, and you might have a little bit more time to look up some of the details on VIN where you need to kind of look for new treatments or new ideas. I think we actually take things a level deeper, so I think it is actually more interesting, not less. And then I think your other question, sorry, just about the monetary thing. So I mean, honestly, that's a work in progress. It has been a bit of a struggle making the business work, but we are slowly but surely getting there. And I think one of the big, we've made a lot of mistakes in 2.5 years of running the business, but we're learning from each of them and getting better. I think the big one was we had underpriced our membership to start. And, as a result, most of our clients were opting for the membership because it was a good deal. But because we do so much time to that kind of care and the telemedicine support, it was causing a problem in terms of financials, but we've corrected a lot of that, kind of going back to this January, and it was amazing in terms of like flipping a switch with the financials, and it's made us a much healthier company. So I think, I guess when I come back to it, there are other people who have tried to scale up mobile businesses and failed, like both in Canada and in the US. So it's not an easy nut to crack. But I guess I come back to first principles, and I just like, the clients love us in terms of the quality of care and the quality of service. People have a lot of pets. People are willing to pay for quality care that they like. And I think there has to be a way to make it work. So again, it's still a work in progress, but I think the membership, having the credit cards on file, the recurring billing to smooth out ups and downs in terms of revenue, and I should mention, like we have a delivery service as well. So we used to fulfill a delivery service ourselves. We don't do that anymore. We have a courier who kind of does it for us. But we're trying to make those extra kind of value added purchases very easy for people. So by building our own web store, people can. I can send somebody an email and say, I recommend this food. They click a link, their card's already on file, they can purchase it and it's there, that afternoon or the next day. So, in terms of kind of billing per client, I guess I don't have specific statistics at this point, but I think we do quite well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hiring too. So I mean, I
yeah,
like obviously if things were not going very well, you wouldn't be hiring. So
yeah, fair enough.
I think that's fair enough. So thanks for answering my tricky question
No problem.
that I threw at you. But so I did wonder, I know that you do have a position available. So do you want to tell us a bit about that too?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we're growing and we need more people. Specifically, another veterinarian is what we're looking for now. In short, I guess it would be a full-time position, and I mean that comes with air quotes. Like full-time could be 3 days, could be 4 days, but I guess I am interested in finding somebody who where this will be their one job, as opposed to somebody who locums at 3 clinics and comes to work for us one day a week or something like that. And there's two reasons for that. Like number one, I really do want that person to kind of feel some ownership of the business, whether it's, just in the, being able to make decision sense, or whether it's from a profit sharing sense, which we do as well. But, I think also for consistency of care with clients and patients, like, I mean, I'm not available 24/7 to everybody. Like every veterinarian, I think, has had this experience where it's like, I can't go away, or I can't close my email or something. And that's not quite it, because we have a close knit team and we have good records. Like, I think it's easy to share back and forth, but I would much rather have, 2 or 3 full-time veterinarians than 6 part-time veterinarians. So yeah, we are looking for somebody who's full-time. At the moment, like, there would be little to no surgery. It really would be more of, kind of the internal medicine, preventive healthcare type of thing. However, if there is somebody who's really keen on surgery, like, again, we do have plans to build out a clinic with a surgery service. And, if there's a candidate out there who really likes surgery and is willing to kind of head that up and almost be like the primary surgeon, it would take a while to get there, but I think we could basically build the service around them and they'd have lots of input on it. So, but yeah, more or less just somebody, again, somebody who's good with people, and somebody who's keen to do something different. Like, it's just, the biggest thing to mobile, the biggest benefit to mobile practice with me, like, it's really nice to get out of the clinic, right? Like, COVID has put a bit of a damper on things, but, being able to stop for coffee and stuff like that, or write a record in a park on a sunny day is actually really nice. When we come back to the office is much less stressful than your typical vet clinic. Like, it's because it's an office, right? Like, it's not a clinic. So there's no, unless we have a staff pet who's there for the day or something, there's no animals in the building, and it's actually really quiet, and it gives you a chance to kind of focus, write your records, make your phone calls, that kind of thing. So, and again, if we move buildings, that might change, but I will always keep that in mind, because I think it makes a big difference. So.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think now, if I'm correct, you had maybe mentioned that even if you're not in the Ottawa area, you may be looking to expand in the future. So get in touch anyways. Is that right?
Yeah, and so that is looking a little bit further down the road. I mean, priority number one is just getting Ottawa up and running, so it's really healthy and self-sustaining. But ultimately, like, I'm hoping if we can build out this model, make it, proven financially successful, and build the software to support it, like, this is something that we could replicate in other markets. And, I realize it's very difficult these days to find good people, good veterinarians, even more so. So, I'm always keen, and even if you're not sure if it's right, like, I'm always keen to just connect to people who are kind of forward thinking and who want to chat. And, eventually I do see a time where we'll be looking for other vets who are interested in kind of heading up, for lack of a better word, another franchise or something like that. So.
Nice. Oh, that's excellent. So I'm just checking our comments on Facebook, and I'm just going to check my private messages. But I'd love to open it up to everyone who's on the call. And if you want to even just type in in the chat where you're phoning in from, we'd love to hear. So just pop your location in, as I'm in Guelph and Mike is in Ottawa. So tell us where you're from, and then feel free to unmute if you have a question, or if you want to type it in the chat. I'm just going to check my messages. So
I have a question, Jess Beetling here.
Yeah. Hi, Jess.
Hey, I have a couple questions actually.
Sure.
I just wanted to know if you can expand more, Mike, on your implementation of telemedicine and how that works with the model, and are you able to manage certain ailments over telemedicine alone, or is it more of a portal through which clients come to ask questions that usually end up with a visit, or how that works?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And that it almost goes back to the root of the model, and the reason why we've planned our memberships to include 2 visits per year. Like, we do offer telemedicine to anybody, especially during the pandemic. Like, it's obviously kind of come to the forefront. There's all kinds of businesses popping up left, right, and center. And I do think there is utility in, doing a standalone appointment by telemedicine. However, that's not really where its true power lies. Like I think it is much more useful as an extension of an existing veterinary patient client relationship. So like, I don't know, 97% of our telemedicine calls are with pre-existing patients. They're with our members, right? Because they don't pay for those telemedicine calls. They're included in the membership deal. And because we see those pets at least twice a year, like you virtually always have kind of current knowledge of what's going on, either from your own personal interaction or maybe from the other vet in the practice who's seen them. So to me, it's much more useful, and it's not, we're rarely dealing with something as like a standalone, and some of our telemedicine might be kind of a follow-up on a pre-existing problem, or maybe it's something new. And if we don't have, an in-home visit available for, let's say, a week or two or something like that, I still think you can achieve a lot with a phone call and maybe a couple pictures by email. And, somebody might send me a picture. I don't know, case from the other day, it's a dog had a cyst kind of at the base of its tail, and we knew what it was, and it had been there for years. And it burst the other day, as these things do. She sent me a couple pictures, and I basically talked to her on the phone. I talked to her, kind of coached her through cleaning it, and we sent her out antibiotics that afternoon. And I got a picture today. It's, I don't know, 10 days later, and it looks great. So, that is really the type of telemedicine we do. So it's not quite, the hot buzzword thing that's going around where like it's only virtual care. It's kind of one component of what we do, and I think the whole package is really what we're promoting, I guess. So does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And then I had another question about what are some of the biggest challenges you faced, I don't know, as a business owner, founder in starting up this type of model, whether
Yeah.
it be with staff or with the actual business itself?
Yeah. There's been a lot of challenges, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to pick one. I think, especially right now, the biggest challenges, especially as the business is growing, like there's more and more stuff for me to do, right? Whether it's the software or, dealing with financial stuff and accountants and things like that. My accountant's very good, by the way. I think I see him there. But, there's a lot of business stuff, and balancing that with the medicine aspect is tough, especially because even though I have an associate, I'm still kind of the primary vet. And that's part of the reason why we're hiring, is so I can kind of scale back a little bit and spend more time focusing on growing the business itself. But that's really been the big challenge. The other thing is, I guess, it's just like financially, it is a big risk, right? Like this is kind of my, loans I've taken out with personal guarantees and things like that. And admittedly, there's a lot of stress as a result, like especially because our financial model is kind of unproven. And like I said, we're making it work, but there's been some, it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, I guess, to put it nicely. So.
Awesome. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we've got a couple people. We got somebody from Rhode Island, someone from BC and Vancouver, a couple from Ontario as well. So anybody else have any questions? I'm just going to check feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Okay, let me just check my DMs here. Catherine, Jessica, Patricia, anybody else who's on the line? Any burning questions for Mike?
I have some more that I can ask. I didn't want to steal the.
I'm happy to take you, Jessica. I saw one about prices from Jessica too, but why don't you go ahead first, Jessica?
I wondered if, with the shortage of veterinarians right now going on and the increase in puppies and new pet ownership, is that something that has spilled over into your practice model, or you've actually seen an increase in business through COVID? Or is that, because people don't want, and maybe they don't want to necessarily leave the house or go to a clinic or leave their dog and not be there for the appointment and so on. I'm just wondering how COVID has affected you specifically.
Yeah, and it's a little hard to say whether COVID has been a positive or a negative. Like I think because a lot of clinics are slammed, like we are also quite busy, but we're booked, we're booked maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead, as opposed to being booked 2 or 3 months ahead, the way I know some general practices are these days. So, certainly, especially recently, like we do benefit when people call around and they can't get in with their regular vet. They find us online, and they're generally happy that they have found us and we can accommodate them. And there are some of those cases where, even if we can't see them on day one, we will book a telemedicine appointment on day one or day two, if they sign up for membership or if they want to pay through other methods. And it's usually enough to get them started. And again, people are very thankful for that. But I think there's no question, like, the pandemic has accelerated a lot of trends, especially things like telemedicine and online commerce and stuff like that. And like, that's kind of what we were planning to do even before the pandemic happened. So I think it probably has helped us. And in some ways, I almost wish we had started a couple of years earlier, because we would have been that much more set up and ready to go. Whereas we kind of were growing through the pandemic, and there were challenges, especially in terms of personal safety, right? Because we're going into people's homes. And there were periods during the pandemic, especially kind of during the first wave, where we actually weren't doing in-home visits. Like, we were only operating by telemedicine. That was a relatively short period. But, what we're doing right now, the one thing that I think is our saving grace in some ways, like, we go into people's homes, you have less control over the environment, but at the same time, we see very low numbers of appointments per day, right? Like, again, if I'm going out for the morning, I probably see like 2 or 3 appointments, and then I come back to the office, and we're working with a small team in the office. So your exposure numbers aren't the same. But I've been worried about, whether my staff members or myself or my family getting sick over the last year, and that's been pretty stressful. So thankfully it has not happened. So.
Gotcha. Oh, and then, so Jessica had asked about prices advertised on your website for clients.
Yeah, and so the prices are all, if anybody wants to go check out the website, it's treatwellpetcare.ca. But I've mentioned transparency a couple of times with both both our staff, but also with customers. And I basically want to make that information as freely accessible as possible. It's partly just to be upfront and honest, so people know what they're getting into, but it's also to make our life easier. Like, if somebody sees our prices and decides it's not for them, I don't need them to call us and occupy our phone time for us to go through that with them. Like, I would much rather them read the website and figure it out that way. So, we have the membership pricing. There's kind of a little membership and pricing thing at the top, but it's got a bunch of information there. Even with things like euthanasia, the bulk of our work is not euthanasia. I know that's another kind of preconception people have about mobile. That is part of any vet's job, and I think it is a nice time of part of the process to have done at home, right? It is much more peaceful. Of our appointments, most of it's more kind of preventive care and medical issues. But even the pricing for that is up on the website. I mean, we haven't put it up in big flashing letters, but there's a blog post about euthanasia that we linked to a few times, and the numbers are all there. So
cool. Yeah, that's a good
point. I think that served us well, I guess I should say too. Like, I know that's, I don't know, myself as a customer, like when I'm buying things in other industries, it's kind of annoying when you have to dig and ask and prod to get that information. Try to make it free.
I think you're very right that you're not prices for price shoppers.
Yeah.
They can see it up front, which is really great. Okay, so I wonder if there's any other questions. I'm going to keep it open here. Feel free to unmute and ask anything else that you want to ask. And I'm going to check my messages.
I had just a comment about there's another vet practice that I was recently reading about in Manhattan, and the USA also use a lot of the same, they're marketing themselves with a lot of the same principles that you're talking about. So they aren't a mobile practice, though. They are a stationary facility.
Okay.
And they're started by 2 vets just over a year ago, and they focus on transparency and pricing. So everything's on the website, just like you are, and they have different. They also have membership packages, different for cats and dogs, and if you want level A, B, C type thing. Yeah. And they've incorporated telemedicine as part of all their packages. as well as this concierge type service where, their cats come in one door, dogs go in another, they're offered a latte, there's pheromones being sprayed all over the place, something like this. So it's kind of interesting to see the new models of practice kind of emerge.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not familiar with that outfit particularly, although I will look them up. But I mean, there's a couple other similar businesses. Again, more of it seems to be happening in the U.S. than in Canada. But I mean, there are some interesting things happening in Canada too. But I mean, I think it speaks to the fact that I think just customer service, like regardless of veterinary medicine, I think is in more and more demand, right? Like, I mean, whether it's food, I mean, again, I know the pandemic's played a role in this, but people ordering food, people having other mobile services come to their house, things like that. It's just time is valuable. People are busy, people are stressed out. And, I think if you can, and this is maybe one of the challenges for us, like sometimes it's hard to convey the service that we offer, like, because we've all been talking here for an hour and then it's easy to convey, but in a quick, succinct, like 2-minute thing, it is challenging. But I think, again, the convenience, the service, I think people really like that, and it resonates. So I'm not surprised there are other businesses doing this, and I think there will be more and more. Like, to me, I think it's almost inevitable. It's just more a matter of how long it takes for the industry as a whole to kind of shift more in that direction. So, well, I mean, thanks very much for hosting, Melanie. I really appreciate it. It's been nice, and I appreciate the questions from everybody. Anyone who wants to kind of further the discussion, I'm happy to chat. The best place to get a hold of me is by email. So just mike@treatwellpetcare.ca. And likewise, if you just want to check out, more about our business, you can visit the website treatwellpetcare.ca, and you'll get a pretty in-depth look. So
awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you very much.